Welcome to the Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. My name is Cal Wood. I am the Arsenal fan in this duo. Along my side is Rick Nelson, the Tottenham fan. Rick, how are you today?
The long-suffering Tottenham fan, we might add. A fitting end to Tottenham's season on Saturday.
Well, I was just there are a lot of great things about the Premier League. And one of the great things is when your team is stumbling and bumbling to the finish line, when the season is finally over, it's summer.
Yeah, that's a good
Time
thing.
to fire up the barbecue, get out the swim trunks, forget all about those cold, rainy evenings in London.
Find a yacht and jump off the back of
it. Well, we know some players are already mentally there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure.
So on this episode, we're going to talk about the weekend that was. Rick will be up first with Tottenham, and then I'll follow with the Arsenal because we like to stay in chronological order. How much of a preview we're going to do to next week, I have no idea. We're just gonna fly by the seat of our pants, like I think everybody in the Premier League is going to do this weekend.
Pretty much. You know.
So Rick, I missed the game on Saturday. Didn't have a chance to see your game. Y'all had the early game here.
Yeah. That was so glad I got up for that one.
Well, I was thinking that after I saw the score.
Well, actually, I mean, the first half, I mean, everything looked so promising. You know, we had a 4-2-3-1 formation. Kulusevski in the number 10 spot. He loves that spot.
Wow.
And the first half was great. Tottenham were brilliant.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it was just Kane's goal was, I mean, just superb. It was a free kick. Obviously one they've trained on. Kulusevski did a little flick back, and 30 yards out, Kane just put it top bins.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful free kick.
And that was early in the game, right? 8 minutes, 10 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, pinging the ball around. Like I said, Kulusevski was looking really good in that number 10 slot. Son was getting involved in the game. There was some great movement. I mean, there was some great link-up play on the left wing. Son to Kulusevski. Kulusevski did a nice little back heel. Son put it across. And Emerson Royale, I mean, fantastic header. And it would have been one of the team goals of the season had this beauty going, without a doubt. You know, and it was just so refreshing. It was so good to watch the first half. It was unbelievable. It was unlike anything Tottenham had dished up all season.
Wow.
They went off to thunderous applause at halftime, and they came out in the second half, and I don't know what happened because no one showed up in the second half of this game. No one.
What is it? Why can Tottenham only play one half?
I do not understand it. They were Cal, I'm not kidding. They were so good in the first half. It was like watching Tottenham under Pochettino. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It was on the front foot, passing, one-touch passing. I mean, it was so good. Bissouma was having the time of his life in midfield. You know, he looked like he was, although he was lucky not to get a red card. He did jump in. He was lucky there. But the second
half,
there
are no red cards in England anymore.
I don't think anymore, no. but we came out in the second half, and like I said, no one turned up. It was like it was almost like annoying to watch for sure, but very just like what is happening here? What is this? Do you know what I mean?
Uh,
It's
I,
like there is something fundamentally got to be sorted out here because to use the old football cliche, a game of two halves is an understatement.
yeah, it seems like that's been the theme of Tottenham's season
Well,
this
this
year.
was the reverse, though, Cal. Normally, we come out in the
That's
first
right.
half and we shy it, and then we kick it
That's
up a
right.
notch in the second half. You know, this was just it, it was a it was annoying, but it was really a head scratcher to watch. Like, what
Hmm.
has gone so wrong from like the dressing room to the second half?
Was it Brentford? Did they pick it up
Well,
and play really
they
good? Or
Thomas Frank made what I thought was an integral change. He took off um, what's his name, Onyeka, and he brought on Damsgaard,
uh
and
huh.
that really kind of changed things up from there. And then suddenly, I thought they'd be lacking a bit of firepower because their bookie wasn't playing right,
That's right.
right. You know what I mean? But this guy Mbumo, he just exploded onto the scene.
Hmm.
I mean, the first goal, the equalising goal, Davies was at fault. Really, Ben Davies. Because in the box with Mbumo, Davies has got his hands behind his back like most players nowadays,
Hmm.
and he moved to the left, which just encouraged Mbuma to move to his left
Hmm.
and take a shot, which is
Hmm.
what he did and scored.
Oh wow.
So it was like really strange to see. Like, and Davies has been a great player for us, no doubt about it, right? But it was strange that it literally invited Mbuma to take the shot, you
Uh
know.
huh.
So it was strange. Whereas if Davies had just stepped to the right, it would have pushed Mbumo to a tight angle.
Right.
Moving to the left, it like opened up the whole goal. It was like kind of like saying, "Go and have a shot, see how you get on." That's really
you,
strange.
you think he had a wager with Ben Foster uh, that Foster wouldn't give up a goal or something?
Yeah, something like that. But and that was it really. You could literally, even through the TV screens, see Tottenham's confidence drain.
Hmm.
Like, not No, I don't know if it was kind of a here we go again because I mean, this was an equalising goal in the second half. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there was just this, I don't know the word, listless, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
about them. Um, and the second goal was really good.
Hmm.
There was a pass. I don't know who the player was for Brentford, but he just played this through ball to Mbumo. Beautiful pass, and it just got around the back of Davies, and he ran onto it, Mbumo, and from a tight angle, slotted it in the corner.
Yeah, he's a good player. They usually go with him and Tony up front, and he's kind of the runaround guy. And
Yeah,
what they did effectively against us when they beat us 2 years ago is they would play the ball up top to Tony, and Tony would head it on for Mbumo to run onto. And I mean, they are a tough, that made them a tough duo. And Bumo's a good player, really good player, very underrated
yeah, yeah. He
because
looked
he's
great.
strong. He's
Yeah,
he's really fast and he's strong. You can't really knock him off of it.
no, no, no. You're right. He was really good at holding the ball, shielding the ball, um, and two really good goals.
Hmm.
Um, and I knew then just watching this. This wasn't like, oh, I can see us coming back here, getting a draw. No, you could see like, nah, they're not in it. They are
Hmm.
they are not in it now in the second half. You just knew. Kane
Hmm.
skied a shot. He had a chance, and he put it over the crossbar. Um, and the Brentford fans were in good form. They started singing, "You're just a shit, Ivan Tony." Um, it's kind of funny. you know. And it's funny because later on in the game, the Tottenham fans was, doing the usual Levy out, Levy out.
Uh
And the Brentford fans were singing, Daniel Levy, we want you to stay. Right?
huh.
They were in good form, Hey, look,
So it was
it's a
some
shit
good
season, but
banter.
it's a shit season, but you got to laugh, right?
Hey, when you're not playing for anything really,
If
uh,
you're down, right?
some good banter is
You know,
always pretty hilarious.
um, Skip, who has been, I like Skip as a player. I mean, it's great. He lost the ball on the edge of the box, just messing around with it, kind of lack of lapse in concentration, and got nicked off of him. And I think it was Mbuma who got it and squared it in the box to Wissa,
Hmm.
who stuck it away for the third goal. Um, and it was like it was just kind of looking at that going, yeah, yep, that's it. That's us.
Uh
That's
huh.
some. And there was a part of me, Cal, this deep down in the darkest recesses of my mind was no. That's how we should end the season at home, right? It's
Uh huh.
almost like, and I say that I never want to see my team lose, obviously, but I say that because let's say we won 3-1,
Hmm.
right? And everybody's like, "Hey, no, that's kind of a masking the real issues here, right? To
Right.
end on that high note.
Papering over the cracks.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you
I
mean.
know the flip side of that is, well, at least it would have been a nice win. Yeah, but I think this again, when you're rock bottom, you need this again to reinforce this is serious.
Uh huh.
You
It,
need,
it
because if
is
you
serious.
win 3-1, it's all over social media, and we're all like, "Hey, Spurs official," and "Oh, what a
Hmm.
great end to the season. It's been tough." No, this is how we ended it because this is how we are, and this needs to get fixed.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it is. It's condition red for Tottenham right now. I mean, it
Yeah,
really is.
yeah, and I think you're right, but I also think that this being football, and I know we've talked about this before, the right manager, which could be Arnie Slot by the look of things right now.
You better hope so because it looks
Yeah.
like he's coming.
Um, the right manager can turn things around,
Yeah,
right?
Ryan Mason, we hardly knew ye.
Pretty much, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not going to work out for Ryan. Um, we've seen others. We've talked about this before. Company and what have you that can turn a team around real quick. We get the right management, the right
Well,
players.
I
So
think
right
I,
now it's condition red. I agree with you.
I don't think you can put company in necessarily in that statement because hey, he did it in the championship. Let's see what his boys have to
Yeah,
offer
well, Eddie
next season.
Howe, right? You can look at an Eddie Howe, right, who did it in the Premier League, right? You know,
Again, that's with Newcastle, and there's some really good pieces there. I mean, that Eddie Howe's certainly I think a better comp than certainly a better comp, but at the same point in time, I think Arnie boy has got his work cut out for him.
well, anybody's going to have their work cut out coming to us. That's part of the challenge.
Yeah.
It's always been for the last 3 years. It has been for someone out there to go, oh, I want to be the person that does this.
Hmm.
I want to be the guy that changes this. Because if you do, you can create some history here if you turn this shit around.
Well, yeah.
It's waiting to happen. It hasn't happened. It's been a disaster for 3 years.
Well, and nothing's really been done to fix it on the player front. And I think I think the real issue is not managers. The real issue is players.
Yeah.
And you got to have better players. I mean, to be honest with you, when I look at Tottenham as a team, you're Harry Kane difference from Everton.
Yeah. This season for sure.
And that's got to be scary that's got to be really scary. So somebody really has to come in and find you guys some young, relatively inexpensive players that are better than the ones you have. And
Well,
certainly you need somebody to replace Davis.
we've got
Um,
11 players out on loan that can come back, that some of those can do a job.
well, going to need some of them to come good. But you're going to have to find a defense.
Yeah.
Um, that's you can't give up. You giving up 60 goals this year? Over 60 goals?
62. I
Yeah.
knew we'd crack the 60 mark. I said last week.
you
Don't do it.
know,
Will
I mean that's number one. I mean, you need a keeper. You got to have a keeper.
you? Yeah. 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 Keeper, creative midfielder, maybe. Um, you know, there's a lot. There's such a big to-do list for Daniel Levy this summer.
It really is. And last summer, wasn't really good. And he's got to figure out, a way to bring in starters. He's got to find a way to bring people into the first team and not worry about the depth.
Yeah. You think about this game, 22 shots at goal, 62% possession, and we still lost 3-1.
Yeah.
Brentford scored 3 of their 4 shots on goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
sums it up. Where does that leaves us now? Like, I think if we beat Leeds and Villa lose at home to Brighton, we might make the EU Conference League.
Okay. So you still got a chance for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Hey, ask West Ham how they feel about it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I mean, if they win, I mean, they're in the championship. If they win the final, the Hammers are going to be throwing parties like you haven't seen.
Yeah. Well, I think we're two different teams. Even with all of Tottenham's foibles, if we won the Conference League, it would be good, but we won't be throwing parties like it's 1999. Do you know
Well,
what I'm saying? I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
if West Ham win the Conference League, it would be, you know, backslapping from everybody, from ex-players and pundits. If Tottenham
uh-huh.
win it, people would be like, it's not what they really need, but it's a good. You see what I'm saying?
Right. Hey, but I still think it's a trophy, and I think
Oh, no, I'm not denying that. Absolutely, I'm
I,
not
I,
denying that.
I still think Todd and Arsenal's getting to the point. Arteta won the FA Cup in his first year, but we finished second. I mean, go and the way this season played out, I think it was okay for us to kind of poo poo the cups a little bit, which we did by the lineups that we used in the cups. But next year, I think it's different. It's so hard to overcome Man City. So second's not a trophy, So I think that you have to look at it. Do you want to put all your resources into chasing the impossible dream and winning the title against Man City? Or do you look at it and say, hey, we finished second. Okay. We finished third. Okay. And let's focus on the FL Cup. Let's look at the FA Cup. Let's look at the Champions League. And let's make a more balanced approach at trying to win things and walk away from the season with a trophy. I mean,
Yeah, I
for
agree.
all,
I think you guys have been top of the league 248 days or whatever it was. Whatever
yeah,
it was.
yeah.
I think that's what. Well, we've had a shit season at Tottenham. There's no denying that. But really, I mean, for you guys, it's got to hurt just as much because for so long at the top and almost feel like there's nothing there, right? To get
Well,
picked at the post. You know what I mean?
so I look on social media some and listen to people talk from other teams. And I noticed that, a lot of people were pulling for Man City, which I think is ridiculous. But in one way, I understand it because if Man City wins, you can compartmentalize that as the fan of another team.
Mm-hmm.
You say, "Oh, they're Man City. We never had a chance." They cheat. They don't run their club like the rest of the other 18 clubs, because you got to throw Chelsea out too. They're just incompetent, but they don't run their club like the other 18 clubs do.
No.
So it's okay if Man City wins, because we can rationalize that. If Arsenal win, other fans of other teams have a lot harder time rationalizing, well, Arsenal won and we didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
So while on the one hand, it hurts, on the other hand, it was freaking Man City. I mean, they've won their last 11 Premier League games in a row?
That's mad.
I mean, it hurts, sure, but what the fuck are you going to do?
Yeah. Well, for Tottenham, there is also an outside chance, and I'm sure Ivan Toney's already figured out the algorithms on this.
Well, first of all, we got to find out which way he went.
Yeah, so that we could actually make the Europa League if Brighton lose 2 of their last 3 remaining games and draw 1. Now, considering Southampton's in that pot, I don't think there's much chance.
Well,
secondly, we do not deserve to even be in the Europa League.
Yeah,
that's
but
that's an honest
City. Man City is also in that pot too.
If anything, we deserve to be in the Conference League, right?
Well, and you got a chance to win it.
Yeah. Anyway, here's the cream on top of the cake, or whatever that saying is, for Saturday afternoon. That because it was the last home game of the season, Tottenham have to go into their dressing room and come back out for the lap of honor. Are you kidding me? Right? It's more the walk of shame, really, is what it was.
That really was.
But here's the funny thing, right? When the players came back out and they were good, like, first of all, half the stadium had cleared out, right?
At least. I couldn't imagine.
It wasn't as bad as like what some people said. I mean, not that I'm bothered by this part of the proceedings, but there was probably still 30,000 people in there. But in that stadium, it looks like a handful of people, right? But the interesting thing is that when the boos started, they cranked up the music in the stadium. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So, like, it was deafening.
Yeah.
It was like literally deafening, but they did it on purpose, which again is,
of course.
I think that's just like a bit of a slight on the fans. But, for a season like this, to have to come back out and do that, to me, it's like, that is the walk of shame. You guys must feel absolutely rotten doing this.
Oh, that's right.
But good.
That's right.
Good. The worse you feel, because you don't feel as bad as the guys sitting up in the stands.
Right.
There's no way.
Right.
You just don't. Because for you guys, it's a well-paying job. For these guys, it's an hour and a half of escapism every week that they pay heartily for.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
Nah, that's right. But another thing that's tough on the players is, let's face it, half of those guys ain't gonna be there next year.
No, of course not. No. Oh, they know that. Yeah.
Exactly. They're like, I'm not going to be here next year, and I got to go out and hear folks boo me.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is really not how I want to spend my Saturday afternoon.
No. Which makes it all the more, like, going back to, like, if we'd have won 3-1, then you're walking around, then maybe most people don't leave, and you're walking around there.
That's
and it's
right.
Like, no, that's all bollocks.
That's right.
That would be wrong, wouldn't it? Right?
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
That's right.
So feel the pain. It's like when you're coaching and you lose, and you tell the players, remember this, feel it, because it sucks to lose.
That's right.
So If we'd have won on Saturday, we're walking around afterwards going, "Yay!"
That's right.
No,
Yeah. Well, Arnie Slot for the first game next year is going to be going, all right, you four guys that were here last year for the
yeah,
last home game. Tell all these new guys how it felt.
yeah, whatever it takes, man. If Arnie's the man, Arnie, get it done.
That's right. So we'll talk a little bit about the Arsenal game now. So I played golf with a buddy of mine on Thursday, and we had been talking about doing a bourbon tour. He lives in Cincinnati. I live in eastern Ohio, so that area of Kentucky is kind of between us, and we both like bourbon. And we're talking about, well, maybe we'll go down there and do a bourbon tour kind of thing. And I'd happened to look up that Jim Gaffigan was playing in Louisville in October.
Jim Gaffigan.
That's right. Oh my! So
Yeah.
I was like, he really must think I'm crazy. But we're talking.
That's pretty good, Cal. You have a side hustle here.
But so I mentioned, I was like, hey, we should get tickets for that. And I'd looked him up in the morning, Saturday morning, and I'd sent him a text. I was like, hey, tickets are going pretty fast. So I'm watching the game, and this may have been the most boring Arsenal game I have ever seen in my life.
I saw the highlights. I mean, good God.
Oh, you should have seen the game. But anyway, so partway through the second half, he texts me and he's like, hey, let's get the tickets. I'm like, okay. And I text him back. And all of a sudden, we're like in this text conversation during the game. And I'm looking up at him like, nah, text more. Look at the game. He calls. Normally during an Arsenal game, I would never take the call. Yeah, hey, man, what's happening?
Yeah.
How you doing?
Funny how things change, right?
So he couldn't figure out how to buy the tickets on his phone on the app. So I'm talking him through the process during the second half of the game. I mean, that game was so boring that we bought Jim Gaffigan tickets.
Yeah, there you go. Now, if you're a Nottingham Forest fan, that was a great game.
Oh, huge game for Forest. We'll talk about it, and we'll talk about some of the reasons that it was kind of a boring game. So probably the thing to do is start with the lineups. So Martinelli had got injured against that thug Concedo, and those thugs Brighton in the Brighton game. So he was out. We brought Chassard on for him on the left wing. Tierney wasn't in the starting lineup. And so in my lineup note for Tierney was goodbye, because if he's not starting that game, it clearly means we probably already made a deal with Newcastle to sell him. And then I was like, so we must be playing a back three. So I've got a back three note. But it turned out we had Kivior at left back and Partey at right back. And I guess the idea was, and before I mention that, Reece Nelson wasn't even on the bench. So apparently he was ill, which makes me think, we've offered him a contract. He hadn't signed it.
He doesn't want to know.
He's gone. So we put Partey at right back, and I guess the idea behind it was to do the Zinchenko thing, where Partey would push up in midfield, and he would kind of play the double pivot with Jorginho, and then we would have White, Gabriel, and Kivior behind him, kind of the same lineup that we've always done, except instead of Zinchenko, it's Partey. And I get the logic behind it. but man, it was bad. And I think it was bad for several reasons. I think number one, it was bad because it wasn't balanced at all. In other words, one thing that makes that lineup good for us is we've got Saka on one wing, who is technical, plays kind of a technical wing role, does a lot with the dribbling, and likes to come inside. And then we've got Ben White that will overlap him down to the end line. But Partey doesn't overlap. He was going to play in the double pivot role, so that takes him out of overlapping. We've got Kivior, who is really a center back at left back, and he's 6'3". He's not overlapping. Then we've got Trossard, who is also a dribbly kind of cut inside, take a shot from the field side foot, which is the same thing Saka is.
Yeah.
So we've got two wingers who both want to cut inside, and we don't have any fullbacks who want to overlap. All of a sudden you've got the winger, the midfielder, and the fullback who all want to play in the same spot. On both sides.
Yeah.
It was just like a lot of players running into each other. And then you combine that with the fact that, Arteta must have come up with it in the lab after the Brighton game. So he had about a day and a half for players to actually go out on the practice pitch and work on it.
Did you see the video of Arteta in the dressing room after the Forest game?
He was distraught.
Oh my God, he was going bonkers.
Yeah. And I think I listened to the Arscast, and James McNicholas, I think it was James McNicholas that was talking about it. But, I think that, the challenge for him is after that goal that Brighton scored, the first goal Brighton scored, went in, I think everybody in an Arsenal shirt said, we can't score two. The title's gone. But the only person who can't say that is the manager. Sure. The manager has to say, if it's a 0.111 chance, the manager still has to be all in on we've got a chance. So while the players and the fans and the rest of us are already making peace with the fact that City are champions, as long as it's mathematically possible, Arteta can't do that.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think in that press conference was when he was making peace with the fact that the title challenge was gone.
Yeah.
And I think that was a big part of it. But I also think the Brighton performance and this performance against Forest was, and I was going to mention this in the what does it mean? But since that was like the most boring game and there's not a lot to talk about, we might as well just.
It is what it is.
So, as you know, as our listeners know, I take notes on the game. And then I go back and kind of create the podcast from the notes. I took 1, 2, 3, 4 notes.
Wow, you did well.
On 90 minutes of football. I took a note on the starting lineup. I took a note on the Forest goal. I took a note about halfway through the first half on what we were doing. And then in the second half, I have one note, which says, open season on Gabriel Jesus. But other than that, those were literally the only notes I took.
And the season reporting right there.
Well, hey, my mind is on a yacht in Ibiza.
I'm already there.
if
I'm already
if
there,
my
Cal.
if my body will not be.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. So I think that when that goal went in for Brighton, we all knew that this that it was gone, you know. And but I think Arteta looked at those two performances and said, "Well, if we want to do this, something has to change." He even said after Brighton that if we have that in us, I think his term was, if we can show that face, then things have to change. And I think that's where he is. And to be perfectly frank, when you looked at him not starting Tierney, when you looked at Reece Nelson not even making the squad, I think that you saw right there, he's already thinking about the players that will and won't be here next year.
Of course he is. Yeah. You know he's there already.
And I think the players are thinking about that
That's
too.
his job. He's already there, right?
That's right. That's right. So there's a lot for us to do. I do want to talk about their goal just for a moment. And to say in that goal started from an Odegaard giveaway. And I would vote for Odegaard as our player of the season. I know a lot of people would probably vote for Bukayo Saka, but I would go for Odegaard. But this is the third time in this run-in that he has played a pass infield from almost the exact same position without getting his head up. It's almost the same thing where he picks up a loose ball, and rather than control it, he doesn't pick his head up and he plays it infield. And it goes right to another team's player. They make one pass and they're behind us. And he has to find a way to get that out of his game, because, on that pass, if you don't know where that pass is going in that area of the field, you are being incredibly careless. I mean, that pass that you make is not a through ball.
Yeah. Well,
You're not.
if you've noticed it 3 times, you can be sure Arteta's on his ass, right?
Oh, but to be riding him like a rented mule,
For sure. You know what I mean?
on that one. And they got to do some film study, because, he cannot do that next year, not one time. That head has to come up and he has to either play that pass to someone or he dribbles it until he finds someone. I mean, that's careless. And, also in this run in, sometimes, like they said in the Big Lebowski, sometimes you eat the bear and sometimes the bear eats you. And for a large part of the season, we was eating the bear, but this time the bear has ate us. And Gabriel slid in and took the ball off of the center forward, great sliding tackle, and kicked it right off his foot and into the goal. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I
But
saw the highlight of that.
yeah, he slides in, takes the ball great. I mean, any other day it goes anywhere else, but this one it goes right off his foot, and just like he made a great shot. Like some days the bar eats you, and that's what happened to us. And this was a big game for Forest.
Oh
They
yeah.
had a chance to clinch a place in the league for next year at home.
Yeah.
And they were up for it. And once they got that 1-goal lead, they were just going to sit on it. And we had nothing. I mean, we had nothing for them. So let's talk about what it means. So it means nothing. It means nothing. The team that trotted out there wasn't the Arsenal team that finished second to City. And the team that trotted out there is also not the team that will trot out for the first game next year.
Right.
So it doesn't mean anything. What's done is done. The season is over. Next Sunday is a time to appreciate the team for what they've done. And win, lose, or draw next Sunday, not going to change anything. We'll applaud them. We beat 5-1. They'll come out for the lap of appreciation, and they would feel sheepish about it. But the Arsenal fans should clap them because it's been a fantastic year. It also meant that, that the Brighton loss or that first goal against Brighton kind of sapped Arsenal of their confidence, sapped them of the sense of urgency, and really sapped them of the emotion. Arsenal overachieved this year, and the emotion of a young team was a large reason behind it. And once that emotion was gone, and it was clearly gone in this game, they just didn't have it, And, sometimes a young team doesn't know how to cope with losing. And that was clear in this one that, they had a game plan they weren't familiar with. So that caused some doubt. And they also have had a confidence sapping run in, and that caused some doubt. So it was a team that just didn't play near with the swagger of the Arsenal teams that had played early in the year. It also means that Tierney's gone, Nelson is gone, and Smith Rowe, who was our second leading scorer last year, did not get on the pitch. So that's got to throw up some concerns for him. So about the last 4 games, it seems like at the end of the game, Arteta has put Smith Rowe on, then he put Vieira on, then he put Smith Rowe on, then he put Vieira. And it seems like he's almost been alternating Smith Rowe and Vieira in that role, trying to create some competition, I guess, for them. And neither one of them done anything. And that's a real concern for us because, maybe Arteta's going to sell one of them. Maybe they were auditioning to see which one stays and which one goes. If they are there next year, and I don't think it's guaranteed that Smith Rowe is going to go, but we'll certainly get some good offers for him. But if they're there, last year at this time, we were talking about how important it was for Martin Odegaard to take the next step for Arsenal to make the top 4. And this next year, it's going to be that important for Smith Rowe and or Vieira to also take that next step for us to be able to continue a title charge, but also to be able to go some distance in the Champions League and in some of these cup games too. It also means that we had the second best starting lineup in the world. When we had all of our players fit and healthy and firing, we were the second best club to Man City. Outside the starting lineup, we were 8th place, maybe 10th place quality. So behind the starting lineup, we're mid-table. And we have to find a way for the, 14th through 18th outfield player to close the gap. Now, that's going to be really hard to do because, some of the players that are in that, that started the year, like let's say Thomas Partey, for instance, when he started the year, he was a gangbuster. He was one of the best players in the league. And now he's mid-table quality. This last run in, he's had a real drop in quality. So not only are we going to have to add 3-4 players to increase the depth of the squad. We've got to look at Xhaka and Partey at a minimum to can we improve those? Can we bring players in as starters? So for us, it's not just a matter of, bringing in a few players to increase the depth. We have to bring in players to increase the quality of the starting lineup, even though that starting lineup for the most part of the year was fantastic.
Yeah.
And we have to bring in, that level player to increase the depth of the squad. So if we want to be competitive, like we were talking about Arsenal being competitive earlier in the podcast, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, but you're going to be, look, even when you were finishing 5th and 8th, you were still getting, 150 million pounds a year to spend or more, right? With no Champions League. Right? So now you've got Champions League, right? You're coming off the back of a great season, which is a magnet for players that are out there that want to join Arsenal.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, everything is there for us. I think the money will be there. And another thing we've got is we got young players that are marketable. Sure. We got Florian Balogun, who scored 20 goals in the French league, and he's 21. He should bring, if we sell him, he should bring some money. I don't necessarily, I think we need to look at selling Nketiah. He's 22, 23. He had a great run in the team when he came in for Jesus, but I don't know that he's the profile that we need for our backup striker. So I think that not only do we have Champions League revenue, not only has this season, every game has been a sellout. Tickets have been really, really hard to come by. Revenues for this season should be through the roof for the team. And, Bayern Leverkusen wants to buy Xhaka from us. So we'll get some revenue for him. So, so there's probably, Nuno Tavares had a relatively good season for Marseille. There could be an option for some money there. So I think we've got, 5 or 6 players that have some marketability. That Sambi Lakanga, came over from Anderlecht, and maybe Burnley's interested in him. So, so I think we have an opportunity to bring in some money through player sales as well. So the money should be there. But that doesn't mean that A, we don't have to do it, because we still have to do it. And B, you got to get them right. There's, you can have all the money in the world. Look at Chelsea. Just because you have the money doesn't mean you get it right. So we've still got to get it right. The last 2 years, I know on one hand that there's going into next year, there's going to be a thing that Arsenal loses it during the run-in. But I think what that shows, and Arteta is taking the hit for it. I've seen on social media, Arteta messed up the run-in last year, and Arteta messed up the run-in this year, and he's got to get it right. And what it shows is we've been focused on fixing the starting lineup with whatever 150 million pounds that we've used, because it was the same deal 2 years ago. We lost the top 4 run-in because we just ran out of players at the end of the year. And it's the same thing this year. That lineup that we trotted out there didn't have Saliba in it. It didn't have Zinchenko in it. It didn't have Martinelli in it. It had Partey in it, at Partey, at 75% of his capabilities. And we've talked about he's got to be carrying an issue. So you know, so the team that we trotted out there, at the end just wasn't near as good. And so that's where we have to improve. It's not Arteta that needs to improve on. Though I certainly think he can be better. It's really the squad needs to be improved.
I agree, man. It's you're right. It doesn't matter how much you spend. I mean, you got to make those players work.
That's right.
I mean, Richarlison. I mean, but obviously Chelsea is the prime example, like you mentioned. You
Yeah.
know, Man City seem to be able to do it right though,
Well, they
and they have the
do.
best coach on the planet too, as well at the moment.
Yes, they do. And they got the best player. I mean, and this brings me to, one of the things I wanted to mention, and I mentioned I don't know if Nketiah is the right profile for us. The way that the Premier League referees allow center forward play. I mean, these guys, Jesus was basically getting mugged all game. Getting mugged all game. Did you see the yellow card he got? So he's running across the box. A guy literally grabs him from behind, across the shoulder and by the neck, and yanks him back, pulls him back down. No penalty call. It's as blatant of even the announcers who never say it are like, what's the guy looking at? So Jesus gets up and he's like, what? And the guy's like, yellow card. He gets yellow carded for it. So, but what it makes is Erling Haaland is the only guy that can play center forward in the league now, and Harry Kane. The referees like Harry, and Erling Haaland is just too big and too fast for everybody else. But nobody else can play center forward because defenders can grab, hold, trip, throw down, whatever they want to on center forwards. So a center forward like Jesus, who is really strong for his size, but also depends on speed and movement, is at a supreme disadvantage because Premier League referees do not give the advantage for movement. They give the advantage for the guy who is the strongest, the guy who can knock the other guy down physically. So it's going to cause Premier League teams to, you can't have a 5'10", really technical, talented center forward anymore. You're going to have a 6'4" guy who's a brute, because he can actually not get tackled, and he can stay on his feet when these guys just grab him, and that's ruins the quality of the football. But that's something we've got to look at. We've got to look at going and buying a Dusan Vahalovic or, some other striker that's really big and really strong just for that reason. And it gives Man City another huge advantage because they have that guy, and so that's another advantage that they got. And while I'm on the Man City rant, let me hit with this. So they've got the 115 charges, but the reason that Saudi Arabia has owns a Premier League team is because they lobbied the British government, who then lobbied the Premier League to give them the team because the Premier League team hadn't given it to them for 3 years.
Yeah. Why are we all not surprised by any of that?
Well, exactly. And, and what that means is, the British government has been like, well, maybe we need to oversee how the Premier League is run. And we all know what that means. That means that the British government's open for business. Yeah. Hey, you want to bribe us? We'll give you what you want in the Premier League.
Of course.
And
it's no different from what we do over here with lobbyists. Right?
I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is it makes those 115 charges against Man City basically meaningless Because if the Premier League, the Premier League is walking the tightrope of they want to enforce them, they believe the right thing to do is enforce them. All the members, other teams in the Premier League want to enforce them. But the Premier League has to walk the tightrope of if we enforce them, are the Qataris going to go to the British government and bribe who needs to be bribed or influence who needs to be influenced to threaten British government oversight of the Premier League?
I would say that's a given.
And I know. And, so what it means is those 115 charges mean nothing. And we've got to watch more of Erling Haaland do whatever he does. And when Kevin De Bruyne gets too old to play, they're just going to go spend another 50 million pounds and pay another 50 million pounds in wages to whatever great player is out there. And they will just continue and continue this dominance. Do you know that Man City's wage bill, their reported wage bill, and one of several of the charges that they have is for not reporting their full wage bill to players and to Guardiola? Those are charges too that they're actually paying Guardiola.
There's going to be a lot. I mean, it's going to Guardiola's already saying he wants this taken care of now, right? These charges. Well, good luck with that. That's not going to happen. No. This is going to drag on for at least 2 years minimum.
At least.
Right? Because you've got lawyers making 50 grand a day here.
That's right. Right? That's right. So,
but I think as this goes on, what's needed and what you will see is really good investigative sports journalists will really start to dig into it. Some already have. And more things will start coming up. Right?
Good.
And and you'll start to see just how underhanded Man City have been, allegedly, at the moment, right, in their dealings. It's all going to start to come up because it's going to have to, because those lawyers filing charges are going to dredge up everything.
Well, that's right. And let's hope, we get the Premier League office to start leaking some of this stuff so it can get out in the mainstream as Man City deflects and procrastinates and, puts off and motion here, motion there.
Well, you're going to see another load of little lawsuits popping up over the next couple of years with teams saying, well, hey, if that happened when they played us, we would have finished here, which means we missed out on 10 million in placement money. So we want our 10 million. You're going to see some of that going on too.
Sure. But, it's sad for me to think that freaking Italy can get this shit taken care of way better and more efficiently than England can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just almost unfathomable to me that they can get it done and, get it done, certainly more fairly than it's happening. So that's my rant. We are right at the hour mark. Rick, do you want to preview Tottenham's upcoming match on Sunday?
Let me see if I can encapsulate this in like 1 minute. I think obviously there's a lot more riding on this for Leeds than there is us. Right? I think despite the results, I think Big Sam has done a fairly decent what he normally does when he comes in for this type of work. Even though it hasn't gone his way, he's kicked out the goalkeeper that was there. He's dropped him, brought somebody else in. He's made those changes. And I think I would say that they would be chomping at the bit to get at us on Sunday. You know what I mean?
Oh, I bet.
And I think it's only going to take one early goal from Leeds for us to capitulate anyway.
Mm-hmm.
At this stage, last game of the season at Ellen Road, they're not going to give a shit,
Right.
right? They're just not, right? At that stage, those players are just wanting this season done, right? So I think it's all for Leeds to play for. We can't even play for pride in this game, Cal.
Right.
That's gone.
Right.
We're done with
Right.
that. So this is about Leeds. Can you win? And they still have to rely on others, but it's about Leeds playing for pride and the potential to stay in the Premier League.
Right.
For us, there's nothing, absolutely nothing. Right? And I know someone will probably go on our website, Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast.com, and say, yeah, but you could still get the Conference League, Rick. Okay. Again, we have nothing to gain by beating Leeds United. Right? So it's all for Leeds. I don't want Leeds to win. Don't get me wrong. If we win 1-0, great. I'm not going to be like punching the air. Will I watch the game? Of course I will. Despite what I've just said, yes. Right?
Yes, the Premier League sponsors can count on Rick Nelson.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, they can't. Tottenham can, but they can go to hell. I don't care about them. But it's all for Leeds to play for, not us. I'm not bothered by the outcome. If we win, great. You know what I mean? Our season is done. It's been shameful. And all I can say is, and I said this before, we move on. Come August, I'll be a different man supporting Tottenham. Right? I will be eager. I will be that 15-year-old again at the beginning of the season, full of anticipation and expectation. Right?
Yeah. So for Arsenal, we're playing Wolves. Wolves are in the league, so they don't really have anything to play for. The team it's been a fantastic season. I think the fans are gonna really embrace the team and thank them for a fantastic season because, as I mentioned, it's been my favorite season as an Arsenal fan. So I think the players are going to be fired up because they're not going to want to do the final lap around the field after a loss. So I would think that the Arsenal players will be well up for the game. How Wolves approaches it, they're probably on the beach. You would certainly think so because they're safe. So it should be a great day at the Emirates. Really, no matter the result, it'll still be a great day at the Emirates. So thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Arsenal for having a great season. It's been a blast. Really appreciate you tuning in. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, review us and rate us on your favorite podcast app. You can also follow Rick on Twitter at ATF Podcast 1. You can follow me at ATF Podcast 2. Rick has already promoted the website. You want to talk about the Instagram?
Yeah, follow me on Instagram. I post on there regularly at Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast. But do go to the website. All the episodes are uploaded there. Arsenal Tottenham Fan Podcast.com.
And for the next episode, please tune in because we will give you our rough off-season schedule of our podcast, what we're going to be doing there. Hey, thanks to everybody for listening. Come on, you Gunners.
Let's go, Tottenham.